I want to say thank you for all the comments. I've looked up most of what you said in my few moments of having internet, and I've decided that out of skinwalkers, fleshgates, goatmans, and the Fae, I'd rather be dealing with a goatman, since he mostly just seems to want to party. Moving on. So, even without your comments yesterday, something didn't sit right with me about the whole prank explanation. Jim. Now, Jim is one of those people you see in ghost story ask Reddits talking about carbon monoxide and infrasound and stuff. So he bought it hook, line, and sinker. Cassie, though, felt the same way I did, and so did Kit. He's been having this friends with benefits thing with Ruby for years, and he woke up at some ungodly hour this morning to find her standing next to his side of the bed, just smiling down at him. That would be weird enough, but Curtis, currently in an actual relationship with Topaz, had the exact same thing happen to him. Curtis is taking Jim's approach to things, though. I still managed to talk Jim into coming out with me and the Tovies. We told the others we were going on an all-day hike, which they seemed to buy. I assumed since we had plenty of daylight, it would be fine. We were trying to find the place shit went down last night, and we managed it surprisingly quickly. I thought the run back to the cabin seemed shorter than the trek out because of the fear, but it turns out we'd been led on such a twisty path that the place we saw Goat Mikey is actually unsettlingly close to the cabin. It did not feel good to find that out. We poked through the bushes for a while, but there didn't seem to be anything out of the ordinary. We were just about to admit the Mikey story was true and head back, and to tell you the truth, I was weirdly disappointed. Look, I know things going bump in the woods is scary shit, but my life is fucking boring. Who hasn't idly wondered what it would be like to have an actual adventure somewhere? Not just getting wasted in the woods, but solving an honest-to-God mystery. Like Sam and Dean, with less plaid and angst, and better boobs. So yeah, as glad as I was that we were apparently safe, there was still that little bit of me that wished there was something just a bit more interesting going on. And then that little bit of me got its wish. We had actually started walking back when Kit called us over, pulling something out of the undergrowth. I hoped it was my phone, but no, it was a digital camera. The one the twins were passing around yesterday. Kit held it out to us wordlessly, looking a bit sick, and I saw what was wrong a second later. There was something splashed across it, something that looked an awful lot like dried blood. Cassie took it and started flicking through the photos. Most of them were pictures from yesterday. Jim and I getting picked up, photos in the car, the fire pit, a selfie with both twins pulling fake scared faces, which they must have taken while we were following the voices. And that was it. The rest of the memory was just full of alternating photos of pitch black and overexposed white. Jim, being Jim, insisted on checking every single frame in minute detail. We were trying to shepherd him back to the house when Cassie stopped us, holding a finger to her lips. When Kit tried asking her what was wrong, she punched him in the shoulder, shushing him. Kit was carrying his rifle again, which made this seem like a bad idea to me. We all heard it then. Someone crying. Just this real broken-hearted sobbing off in the distance somewhere. It was definitely female, though I couldn't even guess at how old they were. We were all looking at each other now, and my skin had started prickling. There was something about the noise I didn't like, almost like it was echoing too much. It was really hard to tell where it was coming from. Kit called out to whoever it was, but the sobbing continued without changing. If we could hear them crying, then they must have been able to hear us talking, let alone Kit's yelling. But there was no response at all. After shouting a few more times, Kit turned to Jim, who nodded. I didn't get what was going on for a second, until Jim turned to me and told me they were going to try to find whoever it was, to see if they needed help. You can bet I wasn't pleased with that notion. As much as I wanted some adventure, that adventure was me being kidnapped by the king of the forest and getting rescued by my motley crew of friends, or something. Not my husband-to-be getting mauled by some crybaby woodland bitch. I asked him not to go, but then he made an annoyingly good point. What if it was some poor lost hiker and she died because I was paranoid about ghosts? Right, fine, fair enough. Off they went. Cassie and I stayed where we were, Cassie pulling out a monster of a handgun, which I didn't even know she was carrying. It was a bright day, but in the middle of the forest, they disappeared from view so quickly it sent another chill down my back. They had a point about the lost hiker idea. It must be so easy to get lost out here. That was when the whispering started. Right behind us, in the trees, just this barely audible whispering. I thought it was the wind at first, then had a dunked in cold water moment when I realized that, though I couldn't make out any other words, I could definitely hear my name being dropped in there. I asked Cassie, and while she could hear the whispering, she couldn't make out anything clearly. There was something about hearing my name in there. I don't know, it felt like I needed to check out what was happening. It sounds so stupid, especially since I'd just been thinking about how easy it would be to get lost in there, but still, it was like a compulsion. So I told Cassie to stay where she was, to wait for me and the boys, and to cover me with her hand cannon as much as possible. She didn't like it, but I promised not to go too far, and off I went, following the voice as best I could. I'd barely gone 10 steps when it stopped. That was when I realized how quiet the forest was. I've spent plenty of time outdoors. I know that when people say, the woods are silent, they just mean there's no sounds of humanity. Other than that, there's plenty going on. Birds, critters in the distance, water, wind, but there was nothing. Just this really oppressive silence. You know what it reminded me of? Back home, we've got this haunted chapel. When you walk in, there's the same dead silence. So heavy, it seems to absorb all other sounds. But at the same time, you feel the potential for something to happen. The feeling of eyes on you. The feeling of something waiting. That's what it felt like out there. Like a held breath before. I quickly retraced my steps, and Cassie was gone. Like I said, the place was oppressively quiet. I wasn't even 10 feet away. I should have heard her moving, but she was just gone. I tried calling her, but it was like I couldn't bear to raise my voice. It felt wrong, breaking that silence. The sound of the guys, the sobbing, that was all gone too. It was so oppressive, it was like I could feel it as a pressure on my skin. I finally got a response, just not the one I was hoping for. It was the click whine of a digital camera. No flash, just the sound, almost like whoever was taking the photo was right beside me. "Who's there?" I yelled, managing to sound angry rather than scared, which was a feat, trust me, because I was fucking terrified. Have you ever sat there in a really quiet house with a TV on standby and realized you can hear the TV making an almost sub-audible whining noise? It's less a noise, more a pressure on your eardrums, something you sort of feel in your back teeth. What I got in response was like that, only then it started getting louder and driving in deeper. First tinnitus, then a fire alarm, then so loud I could feel the pressure gripping my head like a vice. So much pressure, it felt like my skull was going to collapse inwards. I couldn't see anything. I couldn't feel anything. I couldn't even think. There was just the noise. And then it stopped, like someone had flicked a switch, gone, just like that. I was kneeling in the leaf litter, still alone, blood dripping from my ears and nose. The oppressive silence was back, and while I was recovering, I swear I heard one of the twins whisper my name nearby. Then a giggle, then silence. Blessed fucking silence. I nearly peed myself a second later when I heard someone crashing towards me through the trees, but luckily it was just the boys. They said they didn't find anything out there, but the sobbing had stopped suddenly, and then the trees had started rustling, like something seriously fast was skirting around them. They had been running back to Cassie and me when the sound hit. Oh yeah, they heard that shit too. They weren't bleeding, which to me suggests I was closer to the epicenter of whatever it was. It was still bad enough that it dropped them though. We were just starting to freak out about Cassie when she stepped back into sight, smiling like nothing had happened. We asked her if she had heard the whistling stuff too, and she said she hadn't. She thought she'd heard someone calling her name after I left her, and she followed it, but she hadn't heard anything else. Honestly though, something about the way she said it was off. I think she's hiding something. I'm pretty sure she's in shock, like there's something not quite right in the way she's talking or moving. I think she saw something, and it scared her so badly she's dissociating, or something. Damn it, Reddit, I'm an office worker, not a psychologist. Anyway, we headed back, thoroughly creeped out. And then, to add the cherry of creepiness on top of the shit Sunday that was today, I swear we were only gone for 2, maybe 3 hours. No more than 3, I'd put money on it. I'd bet my fucking house on it. But everyone else was convinced that they hadn't seen us for the last 6 hours. The worst bit is, I checked my watch, and they were right. I don't remember looking at it when we were out in the forest, so I can't be certain, but... No, screw it. I am certain. There's no way in hell we were in those woods for 6 hours. No way. We lost time. Jim and I said goodnight to the others, claiming jet lag and wanting a night in together. To be honest, we just couldn't process what was going on. At least, I can't. Jim is still trying to formulate some rational explanation for this shit. I love the man, but Jesus. He's insisting we stay one more day, in case this is all one big misunderstanding. The rational part of my brain is telling me to believe him. Shit like this doesn't happen. It just doesn't. I know you're probably screaming at me to leave, but I think if I did, I'd have to leave Jim. If he left now, he'd be admitting there was something out there that he can't explain. He won't go until he's been proven right. Ah, bugger. Jim, I always knew you'd get me killed, you beautiful idiot. I'll tell you one thing, though. One more incident, and I'm throwing the fool over my shoulder and sprinting back to civilization. Wish me luck.